Welcome to the Zero Trust Beyond the Buzz podcast, where, as our name suggests, we go beyond the buzzword to examine the many advantages and challenges of the zero trust approach to cybersecurity. In a constantly evolving landscape of cyber threats, zero trust access with continuous authentication is the most effective way to securely connect your users to every type of working environment. And the team at Cyolo is here to help you understand why.
Thank you for joining us today for our very first episode of Zero Trust Beyond the Buzz. We're excited to have you with us. I'm Yoni Harris, Cyolo's Product Manager, and today I am joining Quinton King. Quinton is a VP Sales of Cyolo. He has been with Cyolo for 5 months, leading the go-to-market in the United States. Prior to Cyolo, Quinton led the Midwest major sales team for Palo Alto. Quinton, okay, so take it from here.
Thank you, Yoni. I'm excited to be here and have the conversation.
So, Quinton, why don't you give us a bit of introduction for your point of view regarding zero trust and connectivity access?
Sure. There's a lot of buzz about zero trust in the market today, and particularly in light of the fact that President Biden's executive order regarding the suggestion or implementation of zero trust in light of all the breaches that have happened. But when I'm talking to customers about zero trust, the first thing that comes up is there's not a clear definition of what zero trust means. It's a very broad framework that encompasses many different solutions. Zero trust is not a solution in itself. So it's a very broad framework that organizations need to adopt the methodology and put the policies in place in order to achieve true zero trust. Where we play specifically in zero trust is the zero trust access. And that is connecting users, authenticating users to an application, a server, whatever work environment that they have without granting network access.
So you spend most of your time talking to companies that are looking for better solutions regarding access management and secure connectivity. What are some of the challenges you've been hearing lately?
The biggest challenge that we have with customers is helping them to find a starting place. Again, zero trust is a very broad discussion, so it's narrowing it down to the riskiest applications. It's the riskiest users. Many times when organizations are starting out in zero trust, they believe that they have to have all of the building blocks perfectly in place. So zero trust starts with identity, and they believe that they have to have their identity perfect in order to start zero trust. And that's really not the case. We can implement starting points that allow them to do things such as remove their VPN for risky users, third-party users to their riskiest applications. For us, it's really just helping customers create a journey where that they can measure success, they can measure the overall impact to their security posture by taking their most difficult use cases and starting there first.
So the purpose of this podcast is to help our listeners understand how to implement zero trust. So let's talk on how to start and where to start. What is your recommendation for a company that's looking to take the first step towards adopting a zero trust approach?
The first step is finding ways to remove VPN from certain users. So we talk to a lot of customers, and their biggest concern in many cases is third-party connectivity. So you have a lot of users on some sort of unmanaged device that is getting access to the network, that they're losing visibility, and it's a spot where they can immediately get a win. It's very difficult to do in their current infrastructure. And with Cyolo, it's a very elegant way to connect your third-party users, which you need because it's a workforce multiplier, but you need to do it in a secure manner. And we're able to give them that access to whatever working environment they need. But we can also put some tighter controls around whether or not they have to be supervised, whether or not they have to have their session recorded. So we can help organizations find where they see the most risk in their organization and where to get that first easy win.
So when you talk about session recording and supervised access, the first thing that jumps to my mind is compliance. In the past few months, when you've been talking to customers, and even prior to Cyolo, have you come across the need for implementing IT or security tools for compliance reasoning?
Absolutely. Compliance drives a big portion of what security does. And it's not really specialized to any one type of company. Everybody has third-party access, but in addition, we're seeing a digital transformation amongst just about every industry today. So for instance, you take an industrial company that for years has done business a certain way. They've gone through a digital transformation, and now they're no longer an industrial company. They're a tech company. So they have dozens or hundreds of developers that are creating content for their customers that are changing the way that they do business. And in such, they have to find a new way to secure these developers' access. And a big part of that is compliance. To be SOC 2 compliant, you have to take various steps to maintain security and to maintain controls. So what we're seeing from customers now, regardless of industry, it's not just the tech industry anymore that's developer heavy. They need to provide access for their developers to production environments, but they have to have an audit log. They have to have session recording. They have to know who touched what in their production environments. And then from a security perspective, the ability to help lock down some of these unmanaged devices, to make sure that they're able to access certain Git repositories, but they have to have some sort of antivirus on their laptop. So the use cases are really broad, or there's many use cases where compliance fits just about any organization that's doing business today.
So definitely compliance is driving the market to adopt these security tools. Are there different actions to take depending on the industry between enterprise to small and medium businesses when pitching a zero trust access platform and connectivity solution?
Sure. And I think it's not just with security. I mean, I think it's IT in general, that the size of a company and the complexity definitely dictates a starting place. So if you have a large organization of thousands of users, again, getting back to the starting point, it's finding the use case that you can get immediate value out of. And just to draw a parallel between the size of an organization, it's the same amount of effort to take one use case where you have 10,000 users as it is to take 10,000 users in a smaller organization and implement VPN replacement. So finding the use case that's most impactful for any organization is the step one. And then we can grow together and help build out the strategy over time.
So you said grow together, and I'm thinking about the journey of transitioning to an identity-based access model using zero trust. This journey, is this a long journey or a short journey, speaking in months?
It can be a shorter journey, but again, it depends on what the overall outcome for the business is. I think that if you take even just connectivity in general, not zero trust connectivity, but if you go back to the old network security models that we've used for the last 20 years, customers have purchased tools and rushed to implement them and haven't done it in a way that was completely secure. They didn't implement them based on best practices. And if you look at where 99% of breaches happen, it's not because they didn't have the tools in place. It's because they weren't being fully utilized. So if we learn from the mistakes of the past when we go to a zero trust implementation, it's, again, identifying what is most important and critical to the business, making sure that we do it thoroughly and building that template and then growing out. But it doesn't have to be a long, arduous journey. Because of the simplicity of our tool, the automation that's built in, because of these mistakes that we've learned in the past, we can do this in a very progressed time frame. But again, we have to identify what's most important to the business.
Another potential point of confusion for companies in early stages of their journey is the difference between CTNA and Sassy. These two approaches sometimes get mixed up. Can you explain the difference between these two components?
Sure. So ZTNA is a component of Sassy. Sassy is a much broader architecture methodology of connecting users in the shortest path to their applications. But I would argue that ZTNA is the most important component of Sassy. And if you look at what ZTNA protects, it protects the private access for users to internal applications and servers. You can have the rest of the components of Sassy. You can have the web content filtering. You can have the shortest path to any application. But if you're leaving all of your internal assets open to the internet, to anyone with the wherewithal and means to access them, what's the point of doing all that? So that's why I believe ZTNA is a critical component to Sassy.
That definitely makes sense. So, and before we wrap up, do you have any advice for our listeners regarding implementation of zero trust to ZTNA?
Sure. This probably sounds like a broken record because I mentioned it a couple times. But again, it's finding the most critical users and applications that are going to impact your organization day one and helping to secure that connectivity. You don't have to boil the ocean day one. Find what's going to be impactful, what's going to impact your overall security strategy, your overall security posture, and start there. You don't have to do everything day one.
Thank you so much for tuning in to the Zero Trust Beyond the Buzz podcast. We hope you enjoyed listening and invite you to learn more by visiting the Cyolo website at cyolo.io. That's the letter C, then YOLO, YOLO.io. We'll see you next time.